Inside the hangar at Chicago Airport, a silent crowd of engineers circled a giant silver jet engine resting on a wheeled stand. A red tool cart stood open. A clock on the wall ticked too loudly. A billionaire in a navy blue suit checked his watch again. Engineers wiped sweat. Security watched the doors. Then a clear voice cut through the noise. "If you permit, I will fix it." Heads snapped toward the open hangar door. A young man stood there in tattered clothes, his hair wild from wind and weather. He was thin, like someone who had been skipping meals for a long time. Grease stained his fingers, but his eyes, bright and steady, looked only at the engine. Laughter broke the tension. "Are you joking?" Engineer Mark asked, half smiling, half exhausted. Mark ran the jet maintenance, repair, and overhaul operation. He had worked on private jets for 20 years. "We've been at this for 6 hours. One of his engineers shook his head. "Who let him in?" "Security," another called. "Please take him out." 2 guards stepped forward. The man in the navy blue suit, Arthur Pierce, Billionaire CEO and owner of the sleek Bombardier Challenger parked outside, raised his hand. "Stop," his voice was calm but strong. "In my line of business, I have seen unusual things. Let the young man speak." The guards froze. The young man took one more step. "Sir," he said, eyes still on the engine. "I heard your team say there was an unusual noise during landing, like a whistle. Then the engine ran rough and wouldn't spool properly after shutdown." Mark's mouth opened in surprise. "That is exactly what happened," he muttered. Arthur studied the young man's face. The hangar buzzed with the distant hum of generators and the faint smell of jet fuel. "Give him the gloves," Arthur said. A ripple of shock moved through the team. Someone handed the young man a pair of clean gray gloves. His hands trembled for a second as he slid them on, and then they didn't tremble anymore. He moved to the engine with quiet confidence, checked the intake, and ran his fingers lightly along the sensor harness, listening as if the metal itself could whisper its secrets. He crouched by a small panel near the compressor section and tapped it gently. "Do you even know what you're touching?" a junior engineer asked. He didn't answer. He reached for a flashlight and a small mirror, his face drawing close to the open panel. "There," he said softly. "That clamp is wrong. It's tight, but it's on the wrong groove. That creates a tiny air leak. The leak sings like a whistle under load." He traced a wire. "And here, this sensor wire has a small crack in the insulation. It's rubbing against the bracket. When it heats up, it tells the engine the wrong thing. The system tries to correct, and the engine feels rough." Mark blinked. "How could we miss that?" "Because both problems hide each other," he said. "The leak makes the sound. The bad wire makes the engine act sick. If you fix only one, you still have trouble." Arthur stepped closer. "Can you fix it?" The young man looked up at him, then at the tools. "If you permit." Arthur's eyes held his for a long second. "Do it." The hangar changed. The team shifted from doubt to watchfulness. The young man's hands moved fast and neat. He loosened the clamp, reset it into the proper groove, and tightened it to a clean click. He trimmed and rewrapped the sensor wire, laid a protective sleeve over it, and secured it away from the metal bracket. He worked like someone who knew engines the way a singer knows a song. "Time?" Arthur asked without looking at his watch. 17 minutes, someone answered. The young man straightened up, sweat dotting his forehead. He pulled off the gloves and set them carefully on the cart. "I'm done." There was silence. Mark took a slow breath. "We'll test it," he said, trying to sound firm. But his voice had changed. There was respect in it now. Arthur nodded once. "Roll it out." The crew moved quickly. Outside, the afternoon sun poured gold over the tarmac. A ground cart was hooked up. Cables were connected. The team spoke in short, careful words. The young man stood back, watching everything. "Who are you?" Arthur asked quietly, stepping beside him. He opened his mouth, then closed it. "If the test goes well," he said softly, "I will tell you my name." Mark and his team finished their checks and gave a thumbs up. Arthur walked to the control cart himself, placing his hand on the starter switch. He paused and glanced back at the young man, who stood very still, the wind lifting strands of his hair. In his eyes was something fierce and quiet, like a small flame refusing to go out. "Everyone clear," Mark called. The warning beacons began to spin. The airport air felt thinner, as if the whole world held its breath with them. "Here we go," Arthur said. He pressed the button. A low whine rose, deepening into a smooth rush, and then a sharp alarm chirped. A single red light blinked on the panel. The sound wavered. Every face turned to the young man in the tattered clothes. He took one step forward, eyes locked on the engine, and lifted his hand. "Wait. Listen." The warning light glared red. The sound of the jet engine rose and fell as though caught between working and dying. His voice cut through the panic. "Don't shut it down. Not yet. Listen carefully." Mark scowled. "Are you crazy? A warning light means danger. We could damage the core." "It's not the core," he interrupted firmly. "It's the sensor recalibrating. I rewired it. The system needs a moment to accept the correct reading." His words carried a calmness that startled everyone. Arthur's sharp eyes shifted between Mark and the young man. He had run billion-dollar companies long enough to know when someone spoke with authority. "Hold it steady," Arthur commanded. The whine of the turbine grew smoother. The red warning light flickered once, twice, and then turned green. Gasps rippled through the hangar. The engine's hum transformed into a steady, powerful rush. The sound of perfection. Mark staggered back, his face pale. One of his engineers dropped a wrench. For 6 hours, his best men had battled this machine. In under 20 minutes, this stranger had done what none of them could. Arthur turned slowly toward him. "What is your name?" His voice was almost a whisper, but the hangar carried it like thunder. The young man swallowed hard. "My name is Daniel Reed." The name meant nothing to most of the engineers, but Mark's face dropped. "Reed," he breathed. "From MIT. Top of your class. You're him." Murmurs rippled across the hangar floor. They had all heard the stories, the prodigy who had dazzled professors, destined for greatness in aerospace, and then, nothing. He had vanished 2 years ago. Arthur's gaze never left him. "Explain," he said softly. Standing in the glow of the spinning engine, Daniel's voice cracked. 2 years ago, my parents were driving home from their anniversary dinner. A drunk driver ran a red light. They were killed instantly." His voice trembled. "I was their only child. I was 22, just graduated, about to begin my dream job with one of the best aerospace firms in the world. But when they died, I shattered. I couldn't face life. I canceled my interviews. I threw my phone away. I wandered until I lost myself completely. I ended up on the streets." The hangar was silent except for the engine's hum. Even Mark bowed his head, ashamed of how he had mocked him. Daniel's eyes burned with unshed tears. "But every day, I passed this repair center. I would stare through the fence, remembering the future I lost. And today, when I heard your voices, when I saw how helpless you all were, I thought, just once, let me try. Even if I get thrown out, at least I will not have died with my dream still locked inside me." Arthur's throat tightened. He was a man used to boardrooms and numbers, yet this young man's honesty pierced him. Mark's voice cracked. You saved us," he pointed toward Arthur's Challenger jet gleaming outside. "We would have failed. Arthur stepped closer and placed a hand gently on Daniel's shoulder. You didn't just fix my engine. You reminded me why second chances matter. He turned to the crowd. Greatness is not about appearance or titles. It's about truth, skill, and heart. Today, this young man has all 3-inch. Daniel trembled, unsure what to do. But Arthur wasn't done. Daniel Reed, he declared, from this moment on, you will never be homeless again. I will personally make sure the world knows who you are. Gasps and applause broke out. Arthur glanced at his watch. I need to be in London in 6 hours. And I am not going there without you. Daniel's eyes widened. Sir. You fixed my jet. You fly with me. Minutes later, Daniel stood beside the jet, staring at his reflection. For the first time, he didn't see a beggar. He saw who he was always meant to be. But as he touched the cool metal, his heart raced. Could this truly be happening? Behind him, Arthur's voice broke the silence. Get ready. The world is about to know your name. As Daniel climbed the steps into the private jet, neither of them knew that his story had only just begun. The Challenger's cabin gleamed like a floating palace. Cream leather seats curved around polished wooden tables. Daniel sat stiffly near the window, his tattered clothes looking terribly out of place. Across from him, Arthur Pierce leaned back. You worked on my jet like someone born to fix it, he said, his voice steady over the hum of takeoff. Tell me the truth. Where did you train? MIT, sir. I graduated top of my class. First in my year to score a distinction in advanced propulsion systems. And yet here you are, hungry and in torn clothes. Daniel's face burned with shame. Life tore me down. After my parents' death, nothing made sense. Arthur leaned forward. Tomorrow in London, you will meet executives from Apex Aviation, the very company that once offered you a position. I will introduce you as the man who saved my Challenger. They will listen. Daniel's heart stopped. Apex Aviation. He had dreamed of that moment 2 years ago. Sir, what if they laugh at me, he whispered. Arthur's sharp gaze softened. Then they laugh at me, too, for believing in you. But I doubt they will. Your gift is too rare. A flight attendant appeared and, at a nod from Arthur, returned with a perfectly tailored suit and a small case of toiletries. This is for me? Daniel asked. Arthur nodded. You will not walk into tomorrow's meeting in rags. You will walk in as who you are meant to be. When Daniel returned from the restroom, the transformation was stunning. His hair was neat, his face clean-shaven. The suit fit him perfectly, turning him from a homeless man into a confident professional. Even his eyes looked brighter, as if hope itself had polished them. Arthur rose to his feet, stunned. You look, he said quietly, like destiny itself. Dinner passed with quiet conversation. Arthur asked about his childhood dreams, his professors, his love for engines. When the meal ended, Arthur's eyes were unreadable. Daniel, when this jet lands, you will have a choice. You can walk away and disappear again, or you can step into the life you were born for. Which will it be? Daniel's hands gripped the armrest. He remembered the cold nights on the street, the hunger, the shame. And now this chance, a door opening he thought had been sealed forever. His voice was firm. I will step into it. I will not run again. Arthur's lips curved into the faintest smile. Good. But as the jet sliced through the night, a question echoed in both their minds. For Arthur, what if I am wrong about him? And for Daniel, what if tomorrow destroys me again? The wheels of the Challenger jet kissed the runway at London City Airport as dawn painted the sky. By mid-morning, Daniel stood inside a high-rise tower of glass and steel, home to Apex Aviation International. The boardroom was vast, the table long, and the executives seated around it looked sharp enough to cut glass. One man, gray-haired with thin glasses, looked directly at Arthur. "Mr. Pierce, we've waited 6 hours for this meeting. I hope you have a good reason." Arthur's voice was calm, commanding. "I do. I bring you Daniel Reed, the engineer who repaired my Challenger jet after your competitors failed." Whispers rippled across the table. A woman in a red blazer, Miss Thorne, raised a brow. "That young man?" Her eyes swept over Daniel. "He looks untested." Daniel's chest tightened. Arthur's tone sharpened. "Do not judge by what you see. Judge by what he can do." The gray-haired man, Mr. Davies, leaned forward. "Very well, Mr. Reed. Skill in an American hangar is not the same as skill at our international level. Tell us, what exactly did you fix?" Daniel drew a breath. The compressor section clamp was on the wrong groove, creating a leak that produced a whistling sound. Simultaneously, a sensor wire's insulation had cracked, rubbing against a bracket and sending false data to the system. Either issue alone would be hard to find. Together, they disguised each other. The whistle was air, not core damage. The rough spool was an information error, not mechanical failure. Fixing both gave the truth back to the machine. Silence fell. The executives stared. One of them, an older woman with silver hair, tilted her head, impressed. "That's correct." Mr. Davies frowned. "Anyone can memorize a manual." Ms. Thorne gestured toward a large screen on the wall. "Go ahead." Daniel walked to the screen, where a digital schematic of a jet engine spun slowly. "Give me a random failure scenario," he said. Davies smirked. "Bold," he typed quickly. The screen blinked, and a warning light flashed red. Daniel scanned the data. "This isn't the turbine or the fuel line," he murmured. "It's a vibration sensor giving false high readings. The vibration pattern doesn't match physical stress. This is a software echo. Recalibration will fix it." He tapped a few keys. The red light disappeared. The screen confirmed, sensor calibration error resolved. The room went still. The woman with the silver hair spoke first. "He's right. Perfectly right." Arthur allowed himself the smallest smile. "Now, do you see?" Ms. Thorne crossed her arms. "We can't deny his brilliance. But brilliance isn't enough." Arthur stood. Daniel has survived losing his parents and 2 years of homelessness. Yet he still carries his knowledge like a torch that refused to die. If that is not resilience, what is? The silver-haired woman turned to Daniel. "Mr. Reed, if we gave you Teterboro, our biggest branch in the Americas, what would you do?" Daniel's heart pounded. "I would turn it into the most profitable branch in the world. To prove that no tragedy can bury true potential." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mr. Davies sighed. "Let him try. I can't deny what I've seen." Finally, the silver-haired woman smiled. "Welcome to Apex Aviation, Daniel Reed. From this day forward, Teterboro is yours." The words hit Daniel like thunder. Tears blurred his vision as he whispered, "Thank you." But as they left, Arthur's phone buzzed. His face changed as he read the message. "It seems not everyone is happy with this decision," he said grimly. "There may be opposition waiting in Teterboro." The flight back to the U.S. was different. Daniel should have felt victorious, yet unease shadowed his heart. At Teterboro, the regional director, Mr. Hansen, stepped forward, his handshake stiff. "So, you're the young man from the papers," he said, his voice flat. "I find it difficult to accept that someone so inexperienced will head our largest American operation." Daniel met his eyes. "Judge me not by where I have been, but by what I can do." Barely a week later, a high-profile client's Gulfstream reported severe engine trouble. Hansen folded his arms. "Let's see what the miracle boy can do." Daniel swallowed his fear. He walked around the engine, his fingers brushing the metal. This isn't a fuel problem, he said after a few moments. It's a faulty bleed valve. It sticks open under load, stalling the compressor. Mark stepped forward. He's right. With steady hands, Daniel led the repair. Within hours, the engine roared back to perfect life. The client, stunned, shook his hand. The staff erupted in cheers. But Daniel noticed Hansen in the corner, his jaw tight. Wounded pride often led to dangerous schemes. That evening, Arthur visited his new office. "You've done more in a week than many do in years." Before Daniel could reply, another knock came. A young woman stepped in, with a gentle smile and eyes that studied him with quiet intensity. Arthur smiled. "Daniel, this is my daughter, Claire. She's the company's CFO." "So, this is the Daniel I've been hearing about," Claire said softly. "The man who fixed my father's jet and now commands Teterboro." Daniel blushed. "I just try to listen to what the machines need." Claire smiled. "And people, too, I think. You listen better than most leaders." Over the next weeks, their paths crossed often. Claire's calm presence soothed Daniel's fears, and his fire inspired her. It wasn't long before whispers began. One evening, after a long day, Daniel invited Claire to the balcony overlooking the New York skyline. "Claire," he said, his heart pounding, "you came into my life like a storm. You fixed what others couldn't, not just engines, but hope. I don't want to imagine a life without you." He knelt, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside lay a diamond ring that caught the city lights. "Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks. For years, he had been invisible, broken. Now, he was chosen and cherished. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Yes." Months later, the city witnessed a wedding unlike any other. Arthur walked Claire down the aisle, his eyes shining with tears. As he gave her hand to Daniel, he whispered, "You were once a man in rags who fixed my jet. Now, you are my son." As Daniel reached Claire at the altar, the crowd rose. He spoke his vows with a voice full of strength and humility. "I lost myself in tragedy. I slept on the streets with no hope. But one day I dared to say, 'If you permit, I will fix it.' That moment changed my life. Today, I am marrying the daughter of the man who gave me a second chance. This is proof that no darkness is too deep for light to find us again." The cathedral erupted in applause. A year later, Daniel cradled his newborn son. Claire stood beside him, smiling proudly. They named him Jonathan, after Arthur's late father. As Arthur held his grandson, tears streamed down his cheeks. He had built empires, but nothing compared to this. A family restored, a legacy continued. Looking at Daniel, he whispered, "You were the answer I never saw coming. My life is complete." And Daniel, once a homeless man in rags, now smiled through tears of his own. He had found his place, his purpose, his love. The man who once begged for scraps was now a man whose story inspired the world.